I just proved you to be a hypocrite, and you just ate your own words. I'm not going to comment on that because I wasn't there when it comes to the right. But when it comes to the left, you have no problem criticizing Democrats that protest. You're a hypocrite, Gary, and you just got caught. So J.D. Vance over the weekend, yesterday, was in Cincinnati with his 3-year-old taking a walk. He knew that there were protesters out there. He takes a walk with them, and he said that people were screaming at his daughter and stalking his daughter. All the videos that have circulating online do not show that. He's a liar. Do you think J.D. Vance is the Jussie Smollett of 2025?
Hell no. First of all, they wouldn't let him answer. They just kept shouting over him. And
no, they were not. No, that's not true.
How come people on the left are always protesting and shouting and protesting
JD,
violently? And
JD, what happened on January 6th? Were those Democrats?
I'm not JD. I'm Gary.
I'm sorry, Gary. I got you wrong, Gary. You're not the one that's swearing at me. Gary, what happened on January 6th? Were those Democrats?
Oh, God. These are people that were brought up believing what Thomas Jefferson said. That
Gary, Gary, you said Democrat. Gary, you can't pivot. Gary, you can't pivot, Gary. I asked you a question. You said, why is it that Democrats are always, violently protesting and screaming? Gary, were those Democrats on January 6th? It's a very simple question, Gary. Go ahead.
I've been calling you for years and saying the same thing. You got crazies on both sides of the aisle.
Okay, but Gary, answer my question.
You're
Gary,
too partisan.
Gary,
you think
pot him down again. So, Gary, the question wasn't about Democrat protest. The question was specifically about J.D. Vance. It didn't appear to me in the videos that I saw that they were screaming over J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance called them an expletive. These were a bunch of grandmothers that were passionate in their views on Ukraine, and they should be. There was no stalking going on, Gary. So I need you to focus on this one issue. Do you believe what J.D. Vance said when he said that they were stalking his kid and yelling at his kid? There's not one video that shows that, and the protesters said that he was lying. Do you believe them or J.D. Vance?
I wasn't there unless I'm really there and see a lot of videos and stuff. I'm in no position.
You weren't there
to say. Maybe I don't think the man's a liar. The man might.
So which Democrat? Hold on. So which protest? Okay, let's go with that. So Gary, which Democrat protests that?
I know I couldn't do that.
Which Democrat?
I definitely
Gary,
couldn't do that.
Gary, another question. Which Democrat protest were you at where you alleged that they were violent and screaming? Which one of those protests were you at? Can you tell us?
I haven't been to a protest. In fact, I've never been to a protest.
Okay, so Gary just said, okay, so Gary, hear me out. You just said you can't comment on something unless you're there. You just said a few moments ago that Democrats are loud and shouting and aggressive and violent at protest. You just said you can't comment on something unless you're there. So, Gary, do you see your hypocrisy and would you like to retract? You just said you can't comment on it unless you're there, yet you just characterized all Democrats when they go to protest as violent and screaming and yelling. So why is it that you're willing to comment on that not being there?
Some Democrats, some on the left, just looking for an excuse.
Okay, so some. You just said you can't comment on something unless you're there. So you just said you've never been in a protest. So why do you comment then on Democrats? Now, I agree. On both sides, sometimes we see violent protesters. It seems to be happening a lot more on the right lately than the left. But why is it you're only willing to comment on it, even though you weren't there, if you're claiming Democrats are doing it? Why not be consistent and say, if you're not there, I'm not going to comment on it at all, which, by the way, I think is ridiculous. I wasn't there on January 6th, but we all saw the video and we all saw what happened.
You're asking the questions. I just know that when Bush was going to war in the Middle East, all the Democrats and lefties were protesting.
You weren't there, though, Gary. By your standards, Gary, have a nice day, by the way, Gary. I appreciate your call. You weren't there. I just proved you to be a hypocrite, and you just ate your own words. I'm not going to comment on that because I wasn't there when it comes to the right. But when it comes to the left, you have no problem criticizing Democrats that protest. You're a hypocrite, Gary, and you just got caught. And I'll also add by saying the protesters in Cincinnati, Ohio, were not screaming and yelling at J.D. Vance. They were passionate. They weren't violent. They weren't yelling at his daughter. They weren't chasing his daughter. They weren't harassing them. And J.D. Vance is a liar. And the fact that you can't say that shows me that you're complicit.